share it. If you haven't done that already, right? Just do it before we get down to business. Invite your friends, invite your not so friendly friends. Tell every one of them that needs to be here that Mayegun today, Mayegun is live. Thank you very much if you have done that already. So let's get started. 1,301 days ago, the leader of the IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, was kidnapped under a false pretense in Kenya. And what does that mean? Nigeria's murderous regime under Bukwari presented a false intel to the secret police of Kenya that Nnamdi Kanu, if found in their country, was there to meet with the terrorist group in the country, and therefore he is a wanted man in Nigeria. Having heard that, the Kenyan secret police then targeted Nnamdi Kanu, who was at the airport, by the way, after arriving in the country 3 days earlier, when he didn't sneak into their country. When Nnamdi Kanu arrived in Kenya, right, he checked himself in at some point to one of their hospitals for a checkup when he wasn't feeling well. Then 3 days after, he was at the airport to pick up a friend that was also arriving in Kenya on that unfaithful day, when the supposed secret police of Kenya swooped on him under the pretense that they received an intel that Nnamdi Kanu was in Kenya to meet with Al-Shabaab terrorist group in Kenya. Meanwhile, he wasn't there to meet with any terrorist group at all. Well, they found out, 7 days later, having been tortured, where Nnamdi Kanu was taken to an underground cell, where he was also chained down and was being tortured for days, until they came out to say, well, the intel was wrong. At that point, Nnamdi Kanu told his captor, the Kenya secret police, let me go. Now that you realize that I am not in your country to meet with any terror group or what have you. That was when he was told, sorry, we can't do that. There is some higher level of authority more interested in you. In fact, Nigeria has made them an offer. That offer is irresistible offer. In this regard, we don't have anything against you. We don't have anything against you, man. But we just have to hand you over to a team of Nigerians who are already waiting at the airport to take you to Nigeria. That was the beginning of the Nnamdi Kanu's illegal rendition to Nigeria. 1,301 days ago. I even did the calculation. Give me a sec. 1,301 days ago, 112,406,400 seconds ago, 1,873,440 minutes ago, 31,224 hours ago. In a nutshell, 1,301 days ago, Malamu, that provided the fake intel on Nnamdi Kanu to the Interpol as well as the Kenyan police. When Nnamdi Kanu got drugged and bundled down to Nigeria, it was paraded as a trophy. It was like a celebratory day for them in northern Nigeria, that their media, their political class, their impoverished people, they went all up in joy that the man that has been preaching for the peaceful breakup of that contraption has finally been captured, as if Nnamdi Kanu was the genesis, the beginning and the end of their misery, their poverty, their insecurity in northern Nigeria. It was like a great day for them that Malamun, the Attorney General of Nigeria at the time, had to give a press conference in Hausa to say, yes, we got him under a false pretense. Now, it was time for them to now take Nnamdi Kanu to their court. They took him to their court, by the way, and then to obtain what they called detention order. So when it was time for them to actually present the evidence of why Nnamdi Kanu is a terrorist, they started what is called stalling. They started stalling by using the same corrupt judiciary to continue to hold him without presenting evidence. At some point, they said, oh, we will need to present our witnesses in camera. Give me a sec. In camera simply means that those who are going to say Nnamdi Kanu as, sort of recruited them as terrorists in Nigeria, they will not be seen. They will be testifying behind the curtain. His own legal team rejected that. Cut the long story short, Nnamdi Kanu defeated them in their own courts, the appeal court, on the 14th of October 2022, discharged and acquitted Nnamdi Kanu. See, the judges were like, the process of rendition in Nnamdi Kanu to Nigeria was so wrong that Nigeria violated international treaties. Like Nigerian government acted like a rogue government, a rogue regime, that there were processes of extraditing anyone that is wanted for any crime whatsoever in any part of the world. There is a process. Nigeria didn't follow that. Nigeria did not present Nnamdi, or Kenya authority did not present Nnamdi Kanu before their own courts. The allegation against him was never argued in Kenya. It was a pure, it was a pure kidnapping, situation, which actually presented Nigeria as a pariah state, a lawless country, a rogue nation, where law and order doesn't really count. So their own court said that to them. Like, you have been looking for someone. You say, we have been looking for you. We have evidence that you are a terrorist, you are this, you are that, right? Then it came to your own court. In your own court, you were defeated. On the 14th of October 2022, the appeal court in Abuja ruled that Nnamdi Kanu cannot be tried in any court in Nigeria because the process of his extradition, which is the illegal rendition to Nigeria, was so wrong that any judge, any court that entertains the trial of Nnamdi Kanu is only making mockery of the judicial process in that contraption. So what happened? Malamu and his gang decided to say, they now filed what they call stay of execution. How can you file a stay of execution on a judgment of a court that says somebody is discharged, acquitted, and he must be returned back to Kenya? That's what their court says. The evidence is online. I'll probably show you some of it in this program. Return him to Kenya, then go through the normal process of extraditing him to Nigeria for whatever crime you think he is committed. But they won't do that. They relied more on their corrupt judiciary to do the dirty deals for them. Because Nnamdi Kanu was not kidnapped because he's done anything wrong. He was kidnapped because, number one, he's an Igbo man. Then number two, is demanding for something that they thought, like Gowon said back then, that, after killing millions of people needlessly, after betraying a gentleman agreement in Ghana, Aburi, right? After betraying all that agreement, returned back to Nigeria and then unleashed war on the people of Biafra at the time, killing millions of women, children, innocent people in a genocidal war. At the end of it, those who perpetrated that crime against humanity in Nigeria, they were never tried for crimes against humanity. Rather, Gowon said, no winner, no vanquish. No winner, no vanquish. So, and it was not to be talked about again, which means they believe that they've gotten away with it, forgetting the fact that the children of those who survived, they will one day come back to demand for the same thing that their parents bled for. And it was during the time of Bokwari, one of the criminals, genocidists of the Nigerian genocidal war, that was never tried for his own crime. Rather, he's been rewarded, repeatedly, like many others like himself. So to them, Nnamdi Kanu has sort of opened an old wound in a way that even some of us are questioning that today, that did they actually keep Biafra so that all of us can be facing this shege, this poverty, this terrorism, this backwardness, this economic strangulation, this unemployment, and the rest together? Is this the reason why they kept the Biafrans to remain as part of Nigeria when they did? Is this the reason why they have plotted the division between the old united Biafra to what you now have as divided people of the old eastern region? So Nnamdi Kanu opened an old wound, an unforgivable move that the only thing they believe they could do is what? Is to get him buried. Unfortunately, they've not found a way of doing that, even in their own courts. So Malamu, after a year and a half of trying someone that you said you had the evidence against, they had evidence. They were supposed to, okay, we have been looking for you. Okay, yeah, finally, you are, oh, now you've kidnapped me. Here I am. Now present the evidence that I have done anything wrong. Present the evidence that I am a terrorist. But there is no evidence. Rather, they were using this media trial. Nnamdi Kanu this, Nnamdi Kanu that, to the point that they even ignited what they called the unknown gunmen, the politically sponsored terrorists of eastern part of Nigeria. In all of this, their court said, let him go. We can't try him here. The next thing, they filed what they called the stay of execution, hoping that the Supreme Court of Nigeria was going to help them in jailing him or possibly convicting him. If you want to convict someone for any crime, you have to start with presenting evidence. So Nnamdi Kanu and his own team said, I do not have any case to answer. I do not have any defense to put up because, number one, the judgment that said that I was illegally renditioned back to this contraption stands. So what did their Supreme Court do? Their Supreme Court supposedly, who was supposed to be the final arbiter. You know, when you go to Supreme Courts, whatever the ruling of the Supreme Court is final, what happened? The same corrupt system now ruled that, Nnamdi Kanu's case should be sent back to the High Courts, where he's already defeated these mofos. The Supreme Court agreed that Nnamdi Kanu's bail should never have been revoked. That somebody that was expected to return to court at a so date shouldn't have been targeted by the Nigerian army who went there to slaughter and kill him. They actually killed over 32 people in his house that day. So the revocation of his bail was so wrong. That's what the Supreme Court said. And up till now, the Supreme Court has said his bail should be reinstated. It's been over a year now. Guess what? In the lawless contraption that Nigeria is, they still haven't reinstated his bail. And that tells you all you need to know. So Nnamdi Kanu, from his own lawyers, said, I wouldn't mind to offer you ₦1 million if you are a law student who can actually please present a precedent. Precedent is like if this has ever happened before, that somebody was acquitted, discharged and acquitted, right, by the appeal court, and then the supposed prosecuting team how to file a stay of execution and say this judgment must not be implemented. Have you ever seen anything like that before? Of course not. Now, if you are a law student, maybe this is a chance for you to make a quick $1 million from his lawyers at their recent visits. Watch this.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen of the press, what I said and what my two colleagues have said can be summarized as follows. One, recall that Nnamdi Kanu's case was commenced almost over 9 years ago when he was first arrested in Lagos. Recall also that he was then charged with offenses relating to his broadcast on Radio Biafra from his location in London. You can imagine what it means for someone to be on an endless trial that never really happens for almost 10 years and being detained without conviction for 18 months, initially from 2015 to 2017, and again for over 3.5 years from 2021 to the present day. This alone is a gross injustice of its unique kind. 2, it's also to be recalled that after Nnamdi Kanu was freed on bail, Nigeria's army levied these lethal attacks against him that drove him into exile, involuntary exile, from which he was also renditioned in 2021. And recall the decision made in 2018 by the African Union that everything that has happened to the IPOB from 2017 to that very date, and of course, much worse happened after. Recall that those things were declared illegal and unlawful, and as having violated the African Charter at a continental scale. Now, also, the same action, in particular, the proscription of IPOB in 2017, provoked or triggered the rush of litigation that eventually culminated in the ruling of the High Court of Enugu State, declaring that such actions by the federal government of Nigeria against Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB are unconstitutional. So the question to ask is this: why is it that the IPOB, being of Igbo stock, it is not us as legal team making allegations? We have rulings of the international community. In the same vein, we have rulings of municipal courts in Nigeria indicating that what is happening to IPOB is nothing more than an ethnic-driven persecution. 3, now having survived the lethal attacks and having survived this many years in enforced exile, and having undergone all these tribulations and travails, and having been renditioned, these actions, this very action of the federal government of renditioning Nnamdi Kanu triggered the international legal order. In July 2022, the United Nations Human Rights Council came down with a gavel that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinarily renditioned, and that it was a violation of all canons of international law to which Nigeria is subject, and it recommended a generous compensation to be paid to him and cessation of his prosecution. That was ignored by the federal government. 4, it is noteworthy that on 29th June 2021, as indicated before, Nnamdi Kanu was arraigned, well, you can say produced in court, albeit secretly, through the back door, and presented before Honorable Justice Binta Morizala Nyako, who was aware that Nnamdi Kanu had counsel of record. The prosecution was aware Nnamdi Kanu had counsel of record, not us, his former lawyers. And the DSS was aware of the information of his counsel of record. Everything was on file. Yet, Nnamdi Kanu, or the court, conducted hearing over the head of Nnamdi Kanu and remanded him to DSS custody without notice to his counsel, not to talk of presence of his counsel. This is a flagrant violation of Section 36 of the Nigerian Constitution. 5, when you fast forward to October 2022, when the Court of Appeal discharged Nnamdi Kanu, there was also a judgment issuing from the Federal High Court sitting in Umuahia, which had declared his rendition from Kenya as unconstitutional. It didn't stop there. It went as far as declaring his continued detention in Abuja as unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional. Let me help you, in understanding the complexity of this. It should have been very straightforward. But just remember, Nigeria is a lawless country, led by a bunch of criminals who have a lot to hide from you. According to the fearful Boko Haram's government, Nnamdi Kanu is a terrorist because he has a tool that is so powerful, more powerful than their own weaponry of war. Talking of fighter jets, bombs, APC, armored personnel carriers, including hundreds of thousands of soldiers at their own disposal. Nnamdi Kanu has one tool, and that is the truth, via a platform called Radio Biafra. And according to them, the tool in the hands of Nnamdi Kanu is so powerful enough that it can break Nigeria, and in their own statements, it can lead to another war. Why should truth lead to war? It simply means that even though they claimed the war was over, the genocidal war of 1967 to 1970, but it's obvious that it's never over. Majority of those who participated in that war, in that genocide, some of them are still alive, and they are still fighting the war in their own heads. And that is why the conversation around referendum sounds like war to them. Referendum, where people can decide if they still want to be part of this contraption or not. It's a democratic process. It's a democratic experience. And preaching to the people why it is very much important to have a say in deciding if you want to still be part and parcel of this contraption or not is considered warlike to these warmongers, these genocidists that are being paraded as heroes in that contraption. Nigeria is owing Nnamdi Kanu over 1 billion naira in court judgment. Not that they are going to obey any of it. International courts, different courts, has ruled that the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu violates international treaties that Nigeria is part and parcel of, that they have no regard for. They do not have any regard for their own courts. And this is the problem. We also know that if Nnamdi Kanu wasn't an Igbo, if he was maybe an Hausa or a Yoruba, there is a chance that Nnamdi Kanu will be walking free today. There is a chance. And this is where the supposed Igbo elite also comes into play. None of this that is happening to Nnamdi Kanu could be happening if the Igbo elite, the Igbo political class, if they are not in the know, if they are not in on it as well. Some call them cowards. Well, maybe they are cowards, but they are worse than cowards. Majority of them are what you can describe as the real bastards of that Igbo flock. Very selfish. I know majority of these criminals from all tribes in Nigeria are very selfish, no doubt. But the selfishness of the Igbo political class is top notch. They are afraid of a man that will remind their people why and what Nigeria did to them and why Nigeria is still profiling them in this day and time. Why that we grew up knowing what they call the Wazobia, the three biggest ethnic groups in Nigeria, the Hausas, the Yorubas, and the Igbos, Wazobia. Only for some section of the country to believe confidently and openly be saying that the third biggest ethnic nationality in that contraption cannot be trusted with power and they will never be in charge of that country. But they must be part of the country. whether they like it or not. You will see the Yoruba mofos. You will see the Hausa Fulani terrorists. They will be telling you, Igbo will never lead Nigeria.